Welcome to another deep dive. We're really getting into something fascinating today. Kingdom Principles by Dr. Myles Munroe.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
It's a good one.
I love a book that just like shakes things up and makes you think differently, and
Absolutely.
this one definitely delivers. We're talking about the kingdom of God,
Yes.
but not in the way you might typically think.
Not the typical Sunday school answer.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I want to introduce our expert for this deep dive. Could you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and your experience with the concepts in this book?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've been studying Dr. Munroe's teachings for a number of years now, really captivated by his unique perspective on the kingdom. It's not just about, the afterlife or, a religious idea. It's a practical governing system.
Yes.
With principles that we can apply to our lives.
I love that you said that. It's a governing system. It's not just this ethereal concept that's, out there somewhere.
Right.
Okay. So, when I first cracked this book open, I have to admit, I was a little bit taken aback by this whole idea that the kingdom should be our top priority, even above, basic needs like food and shelter. I mean, isn't that a little bit radical? I mean, most of us are worried about paying our bills,
right,
and, keeping a roof over our heads, not necessarily, some kind of abstract concept like the kingdom of God.
I mean, you're right. It might seem radical, a little counterintuitive at first glance, but when you really dig into what Dr. Munroe is saying, it's not about neglecting those practical needs.
Yeah.
It's about shifting our perspective.
Okay.
He compares this to Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Oh, interesting.
That pyramid that we all learn about, where you start with those basic survival needs like food, water, shelter, and then it goes up to, things like belonging and self-actualization. Dr. Munroe's suggestion is that instead of placing the kingdom at the top of that pyramid, as the ultimate goal we eventually reach, it should actually be the foundation.
Oh, wow. Okay, so instead of climbing that pyramid to reach the kingdom, we're saying we build our lives on the foundation of the kingdom.
Exactly. It's a total paradigm shift.
Yeah.
And when you start with the kingdom as your base, seeking it first, then those other needs, they get taken care of. So it's not that those needs go away. It's that they are
met, but in a different way.
They are met as we are seeking the kingdom.
As a byproduct.
Okay, so we're talking about like really changing our approach to life here.
For sure.
Putting the kingdom first. But how does that even work in the real world? I mean, we live in a world of all sorts of governments.
Yeah.
We got democracies, republics, monarchies, dictatorships.
All kinds. Where does this kingdom concept fit into all of that? How do they relate?
Yeah, that's where it gets super interesting. Dr. Munroe dives into those shortcomings, the limitations of all those human systems. He argues, whether it's a, dictatorship or even a democracy, that they all fall short of achieving perfect justice and order.
So he's saying that the kingdom of God is kind of like the ideal that we're all striving for.
It's the model, the blueprint.
And, that makes me think about the creation story in the Bible.
Oh, yeah, Genesis.
God gives Adam and Eve dominion over the earth, right?
Right.
He gives humanity authority to rule and to govern.
It's like a delegation of authority.
Yes. And that was right from the beginning.
Right from the start.
But then, of course, we have the fall.
The fall of man.
And that kind of throws a wrench in everything.
It disrupts that original harmony and that authority that we were given.
Yeah. And I think that's what we see playing out through all of human history, right?
Throughout history, trying to recreate that perfect system. Yeah.
We're trying to recapture that perfect government, that perfect society. But we always seem to fall short.
We always fall short.
So Dr. Munroe's suggesting that maybe the kingdom of God is that model that we've been searching for all along.
That's the core premise.
Okay, so help me understand this then. He talks about kingship.
Yeah.
And lordship. Are those the same thing?
They're intertwined, but there's a nuanced distinction. Think about it. You can be a ruler without being an owner.
Okay.
But a true king owns what he rules. So the land, the resources, the people are all under his ownership.
It's not just authority.
It's more than just authority.
It's ownership.
It's ownership and dominion over his domain.
And that makes me think about the story he tells about the Portuguese king and his son.
Oh, yes, that's a great illustration.
Can you remind us about that?
Absolutely. So this king, he wanted to give his son true kingship.
Right.
Not just a title. So what did he do? He gives him territory, his own land to rule.
Right.
Because true kingship is tied to that ownership.
Okay.
It's not just a name, it's about having dominion.
So If we really see ourselves as citizens of the kingdom of God,
Yes.
where God is the king and he owns everything and provides for us, how should that change the way we live?
That's the million-dollar question. That's what Dr. Munroe wants us to really wrestle with. What would it look like if we shifted from self-reliance to kingdom reliance? From seeing ourselves as individuals striving to make it on our own to citizens of this kingdom where our needs are met by the king.
That's a huge shift in perspective.
It's radical, it's countercultural, but incredibly freeing.
It is free.
Yeah,
Okay, so we need to shift our perspective, put the kingdom first.
absolutely.
But to live as citizens of a kingdom, we need to know the rules. Every kingdom has its laws.
Right, every society needs structure and order.
I'm guessing the kingdom of God is no different. So what does Dr. Munroe say about that?
He introduces this concept of the Bible as the Constitution.
Wait, hold on. The Bible is a constitution.
Think about it. A constitution, it's a contract between a ruler and the citizens. It outlines the ruler's will, the rights and responsibilities, the laws that govern the land.
So is Dr. Munroe saying that the Bible's like a contract between God and humanity?
Between God the King and us, his citizens.
It lays out his expectations.
Yes.
What we can expect in return.
Exactly.
The blessings and the benefits.
It's a blueprint for kingdom living. It's not just, stories and verses. It's practical.
It's a guidebook.
Yeah, a guidebook. That's a good word for it.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, but a lot of times when we think about laws, we think about rules and restrictions, something that limits our freedom.
Yeah, we get that thou shalt not kind of vibe.
Right.
But Dr. Munroe seems to have a different take on this, doesn't he?
He does, yeah.